What was the last good idea that you had? And can you remember what caused it to pop into your head in the first place? The last good idea that I had was to build a new social media platform. And I can remember the exact moment that perhaps not so good idea popped into mine. It was Christmas Day just gone. And after unwrapping our presents, I was sat on the sofa, already in a chocolate and eggnog-induced coma, watching my 4-year-old daughter joyfully heading towards her next gift, knowing full well what comes next. Daddy, can you open? Of course, my darling. Then the 15-minute battle with the toy's impossible packaging, once in, only to find out that it's powered by the one battery size I've run out of. Double A's. And so I'm forced to sacrifice the TV's remote control until I can urgently find some more. Now, the parents in the room will know exactly what I mean. But the look on my daughter's face when I eventually get her toy robot opened and working was priceless. The equal measures of wonder and confusion in her eyes as she controlled her new Sophie robot with hand gestures alone was deeply inspiring to watch. Something about the connection between humanity and technology in that very moment is perhaps what drew me towards my own overly ambitious latest idea. Who knows? But in that moment, I felt incredibly proud of her and was immediately transported back to my own childhood. Now, as a child, I was always creative and curious. And like most kids, I loved drawing and building things. But that creative passion evolved into tinkering with my toys in an endless attempt to redesign and reinvent them in new and exciting ways. I just couldn't let them be. I always saw more potential in them, and I had this burning desire to know how they worked. I feel for my own parents now because my bedroom floor was always a mess, littered with tiny plastic choke hazards, batteries, springs, and broken screws. But in the process of taking my precious toys apart and attempting to rebuild them, I did learn how they worked. I learned how components integrate and interact, how gears and motors can generate motion, and how well-designed products, plus imagination, can bring those very same objects to life in the hands and minds of their user. For those of you who have seen the first Toy Story, think Sid, but far less evil. Now, that childhood passion is perhaps better described today as having an innovator's mindset. And after completing an engineering degree, inventing a fishing product, jumping out of planes for 10 years as a captain in the British Army's parachute regiment, a brief stint in finance designing and building fintech systems, and a myriad of weird and wonderful projects in between, I've now combined all of those polar opposite life experiences and invaluable lessons learned along the way to help other organizations and people to find and fulfill their own innovation potential, and to help them discover brilliant ideas and turn them into practical real-world solutions. Simply put, I am, and always will be, a curious innovator. But I also despise the word innovation because of what it has recently become. Now, let's face it, innovation is one of those horribly overused corporate buzzwords, right up there with synergy and leverage. Every product, company, and event is branded as being innovative in an attempt to appear new and cutting edge. But most of the time, there's no real innovation taking place, and we're all just talking a good game. Now, don't get me wrong, talking is, of course, a fantastic first step in the right direction. But innovation and ideas are a bit like fireflies that flicker and flash before us in the blink of an eye, coming and going, teasing and taunting us with their fleeting nature as we try and catch and hold on to them. How many times have you experienced that light bulb moment when a brilliant idea flashes into your mind, or felt that spark of motivation to do something different and new? And have you noticed how quickly those bright and inspired moments so often disappear, fading away back into the noise of reality, like those fireflies fluttering back into the darkness? And once ideas are gone and have been forgotten, they're almost impossible to get back. The fireflies have escaped us. But for any idea, good or bad, being remembered is only the first hurdle it faces. There are so many other factors that determine the likelihood of an idea evolving from mere thought to becoming something tangible in our world. Self-doubt, analysis paralysis, social pessimism, lack of time, energy, money, perhaps even just poor timing and a bit of bad luck. I wonder how many good ideas that could have changed our lives or world for the better have been lost because of such mundane and negative influences. Ideas that died before they even had the chance to take their first breath. Of course, I'm not suggesting that every idea we have is worthy of effort. We're all busy people with limited time and capacity, but there are some ideas, those ones that feel extra special, that are definitely worth a bit more attention. even if they turn out to be quite different from how we first imagined them to be. And when I encourage people and businesses to nurture ideas into existence, I often remind them that whenever we try something new in life, we rarely get it right on the first attempt. Therefore, why would we expect an idea to be perfect from the start? It's a bit like a child learning to ride a bike. You can talk all you want about it, or watch YouTube instructional videos all day, but until you actually get on a bike and start pedaling, earning a few cuts and bruises along the way, of course, you'll never actually learn to ride. Being bold enough to take that first step towards change is the foundation of innovation. And as you take more and more of those small steps, they'll compound over time to utterly transform the way you think and the world we live in. And that is true innovation. Actions over words. So when you visualize all of the hurdles and influences an idea faces, you can begin to appreciate just how difficult an idea's journey to reality really is. The curious innovator in me is fascinated by this complex landscape, and over the years I have devised a simple framework, which I find to be incredibly helpful for breaking that complexity down. And I call it, rather plainly, the innovation equation. And don't worry, there's no maths involved. Innovation equals leadership, plus people, plus technology, plus context. Now, the first part is leadership. Because for any good idea to reach its full potential, the leaders surrounding that idea must first set the environment and conditions which allow innovation and creativity to thrive. Now, I want you all to think of 3 possible solutions to the complex problem I'm about to show you on the next slide. You'll have 1 minute to think, and once your time is up, I'm going to select 3 people from the audience to come up on stage to share their ideas and solutions with us all. All clear? 1 minute. 3 solutions, and be prepared to come on stage. Okay, ready? 3, 2, 1. Of course, I'm only joking. I wouldn't put that kind of pressure on anyone, nor would I expect such an abrupt method to produce any valuable ideas or solutions. But did you feel that sudden flutter of anxiety as your role shifted from watching and listening to being put in the spotlight, being pressured to think fast without being given enough time or context, being forced to come up with ideas from the confines of your chair in this dark, closed environment where you have no tools, no space, and are surrounded by complete strangers? And the risk that you'd be one of the unlucky 3 who I'd asked to come up on stage to share your half-baked ideas and solutions with this big and scary audience. And all of this stress and anxiety forced upon you in less than 1 minute. Horrible. Yet how often are we put in similar situations in work by our leaders who demand immediate and effective results, often without giving us the time, context, or resources to properly understand the problem we're being asked to solve, or how our part fits into the bigger picture? How often does the office environment feel like an oppressive cage for new ideas and creativity? And how often do we rush to implement half-baked solutions because of self-imposed internal deadlines? The leaders in the room, take note and remember it the next time you ask your people to produce quick miracles. Instead, you should be asking yourselves, what have you done to set the environment and conditions for those good ideas to blossom? Second is people, because in most cases, it's the individuals and teams who are the ones rolling up their sleeves and getting their hands dirty to bring ideas to life. And we've all experienced being told to do something which we really didn't want to do. Those so-called good ideas that usually come from above that seem wildly inefficient or even sometimes outright stupid. And worse, we're often told how to do it. And don't get me started on micromanagement. But hopefully we've also all experienced that buzz, excitement, and passion when we were involved in a project that we deeply cared about. One where we felt incentivized and motivated to work extra hard for. One where we were given the freedom to ideate, to build, to test, to fail, to learn, and to try again, knowing our leaders would catch us if we fell. One where our individual strengths and talents were used to maximum effect. And one where all the people and teams involved were fully aligned in the vision and working perfectly in tune with each other to get it done. Because when people are given the freedom to operate like that, they'll very quickly find deeper meaning and purpose in both work and life. Innovation will become deeply rooted throughout the organization's DNA at all levels, and that is the ultimate goal. Not to bring one good idea to life, but to build cross-functional and empowered teams who can work together to come up with and bring multiple good ideas to life with speed, direction, and confidence. Because when people solve problems and build solutions together, sharing their collective intelligence, experiences, and lessons learned along the way, that is when true systemic innovation happens. And that is when the leaders will finally get those miracle solutions they're always after. Third is technology. Perhaps the most visible part of innovation, because most modern ideas and solutions tend to involve technology in some capacity. The technological progress we're witnessing right now is truly mind-blowing, but the pace of change is also quite scary. Technology has been a force multiplier for innovation during this past century, but it can also be a major distraction because too often we mistake technology alone for innovation itself, and we wrongly assume that technology is the answer to everything. As innovators, we must try not to get too distracted by the newest and shiniest toys in the shop window. Instead, we should try to imagine how multiple disruptive innovations and technologies could converge to create the systems of the future. I'm thinking of a world where technological breakthroughs in areas such as quantum computing, robotics, AI, blockchain, biotech, virtual reality, fuse with global shifts in things like climate change, resource competition, and space geopolitics. A world where those new forces go on to merge with more human-centered innovations, such as new ways of working, equality and diversity initiatives, and the dismantling of racism and tribalism. And perhaps, eventually, how all of that could go on to intersect with deeper philosophical innovations, such as a better understanding of consciousness, spirituality, and maybe even the meaning of life. Now, what does that world look like? And what will it mean to be human within it? How will we live, work, and connect with the technologies that will define our future? That's the space I love exploring, where technology, humanity, and philosophy converge. And whilst technology will, of course, play a huge role in that future, I'm confident that some of the best ideas and answers won't always rest with technology alone. Just because the technology is there doesn't mean we always have to use it. Context is the fourth and perhaps most overlooked strand. This is where timing, environment, and luck quietly shape the evolution of an idea. Throughout history, there have been countless no-brainer ideas that had everything else going for them except context. Take Coca-Cola's release of New Coke in 1985, for example. Now, their idea was to replace the traditional Coke recipe with a newer, sweeter version called New Coke to compete with their rivals Pepsi. And New Coke had full executive backing. It had brilliant people behind the idea. Chemists perfecting the new formula through thousands of taste tests and cutting-edge production ready to roll. They even had market research showing that people actually preferred the sweeter flavor. Leadership tick, people tick, technology tick. But they launched into a firestorm of consumer backlash. People didn't just dislike it, they rioted, apparently even raiding supermarket shelves to stockpile the old Coke recipe. Because Coca-Cola was their tradition, their nostalgia, their ritual. New Coke's timing was completely wrong, and somehow this emotional context was missed. Within 79 days, original Coke was put back on shelves, but rebranded as Coca-Cola Classic to reinforce that nothing had changed. And New Coke was a total disaster. So back to the idea in their equation. What seemed like a perfectly good and data-driven idea wreaked havoc on one of the world's most established and trusted brands. But context works in both ways. The pandemic, a black swan event of global scale, was a golden ticket for the likes of Zoom and home fitness brands, but pure doom for airlines and travel agents. Understanding the timing and context around your idea is vital if you want to see it come to life. Now, in the military, we called this having good situational awareness, and mission success often depended on it. And that's the innovation equation. Innovation equals leadership, plus people, plus technology, plus context. And when you view an idea through the lens of the framework, you can see the full journey an idea must endure to reach those golden gates of reality. The equation will act as a handrail to help you set the right environment and conditions for ideas and creativity to blossom. It exposes whether or not you have the right people behind you who are skilled and motivated enough to get it done. It challenges you to look for innovative solutions beyond technology alone, and it gives you the situational awareness needed to navigate all of the surrounding factors and influences. And when all four strands align around your idea, that is the absolute sweet spot for successful innovation. I hope the equation now serves you as well as it has me. Now, at the start of this talk, I asked you to think about the last good idea that you had. And if you still haven't thought of one yet, don't worry. It's only a matter of time. Ideas have a habit of showing up when we least expect them. Those tiny flickers of light in the dark. So when that next idea does fly by, don't ask yourself whether it's perfect. It probably won't be. Instead, ask a different question. What would this idea need to survive? Most ideas don't fail because they're wrong. They fail because the conditions around them aren't right. So be that person, the one who creates space, the one who takes that all-important first step and the next step and the next, the one who doesn't let the firefly slip quietly back into the dark. And if along the way you feel a bit like a child again, curious and willing to take things apart just to see how they work, you're probably on the right track. Because innovation isn't about having more ideas. It's about giving the right ones a fighting chance. Thank you.